Chapter 7 of Rewards and Fairies. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Kiki Bissell, Kikala.org. Rewards and Fairies by Rudyard Kipling. Section 7, Brother Squaretoes. Philadelphia. If you're off to Philadelphia in the morning, you mustn't take my stories for a guide. There's little left indeed of the city you will read of, and all the folk I write about have died. Now few will understand if you mention Talleyrand, or remember what his cunning and his skill did. And the cabmen at the wharf do not know Count Zinzendorf, nor the church in Philadelphia he builded. It is gone, gone, gone with lost Atlantis. Never say I didn't give you warning. In 1793 'twas there for all to see, but it's not in Philadelphia this morning. If you're off to Philadelphia in the morning, you mustn't go by everything I've said. Bob Bicknell's southern stages have been laid aside for ages, but the limited will take you there instead. Toby Hurt can't be seen at 118 North 2nd Street no matter when you call. And I fear you'll search in vain for the wash house down the lane where the Pharaoh played the fiddle at the ball. It is gone, gone, gone with Thebes the golden. Never say I didn't give you warning. In 1794 'twas a famous dancing floor, but it's not in Philadelphia this morning. If you're off to Philadelphia in the morning, you must telegraph for rooms at some hotel. You needn't try your luck at Epley's or the Buck, though the father of his country liked them well. It is not the slightest use to inquire for Adam Goose or to ask where Pastor Meter has removed. So you must treat as out of date the story I relate of the church in Philadelphia he loved so. He is gone, gone, gone with Martin Luther. Never say I didn't give you warning. In 1795 he was, rest his soul, alive, but he's not in Philadelphia this morning. If you're off to Philadelphia this morning and wish to prove the truth of what I say, I pledge my word you'll find the pleasant land behind unaltered since Red Jacket rode that way. Still the pine woods scent the noon, still the catbird sings his tune, still autumn sets the maple forest blazing. Still the grapevine through the dusk flings her soul-compelling musk, still the fireflies in the corn make night amazing. They are there, there, there with earth immortal. Citizens, I give you friendly warning. The things that truly last, when men and time have passed, they are all in Pennsylvania this morning. Brother Squaretoes. It was almost the end of their visit to the seaside. They had turned themselves out of doors while their trunks were being packed, and strolled over the downs toward the dull evening sea. The tide was dead low under the chalk cliffs, and the little wrinkled waves grieved along the sands up the coast to New Haven, and down the coast to long gray Brighton, whose smoke trailed out across the channel. They walked to the gap where the cliff is only a few feet high. A windlass for hoisting shingle from the beach below stands at the edge of it. The Coast Guard cottages are a little farther on, and an old ship's figurehead of a Turk in a turban stared at them over the wall. This time tomorrow we shall be at home, thank goodness, said Una. I hate the sea. I believe it's all right in the middle, said Dan. The edges are the sorrowful parts. Cordery, the Coast Guard, came out of the cottage, leveled his telescope at some fishing boats, shut it with a click, and walked away. He grew smaller and smaller along the edge of the cliff where the neat piles of white chalk every few yards showed the path, even on the darkest night. Where's Cordery going? Said Una. Halfway to New Haven, said Dan. Then he'll meet the New Haven Coast Guard and turn back. He says if Coast Guards were done away with, smuggling would start up at once. A voice on the beach under the cliff began to sing. The moon she shied on Telscombe Tye, at night it was. She saw the smugglers riding by, a very pretty sight it was. Feet scrabbled on the flinty path. A dark, thin-faced man in very neat brown clothes and broad-toed shoes came up, followed by Puck. 3 Dunkirk boats was standing in, the man went on. Hush, said Puck. You'll shock these nice young people. Oh, shall I? Mille pardon. He shrugged his shoulders almost up to his ears, spread his hands abroad, and jabbered in French. No comprenez? He said. I'll give it to you in Low German. And he went off in another language, changing his voice and manner so completely that they hardly knew him for the same person. But his dark, beady brown eyes still twinkled merrily in his lean face, and the children felt that they did not suit the straight, plain, stuffy brown coat, brown knee breeches, and broad-brimmed hat. His hair was tied in a short pigtail which danced wickedly when he turned his head. Ha, done, said Puck, laughing. Be one thing or t'other, Pharaoh, French or English or German, no great odds which. Oh, but it is, though, said Una quickly. We haven't begun German yet, and we're going back to our French next week. Aren't you English? Said Dan. We heard you singing just now. Aha! That was the Sussex side of me. Dad, he married a French girl out of Bourgogne, and French she stayed till her dying day. She was an Aurette, of course. We Lees mostly marry Aurettes. Haven't you ever come across the saying, Aurettes and Lees like as 2 peas, what they can't smuggle they'll run overseas? Then you're a smuggler? Cried Una. And have you smuggled much? Said Dan. Mr. Lee nodded solemnly. Mind you, said he, I don't uphold smuggling for the generality of mankind. Mostly they can't make a do of it. But I was brought up to the trade, d'ye see, in a lawful line of descent on. He waved across the channel, on both sides of the water. 'Twas all the family, same as fiddlin'. The Aurettes used mostly to run the stuff across from Bourgogne, but we Lees landed it here and ran it up to London town by the safest road. Then where did you live? Said Una. You mustn't ever live too close to your business in the trade. We kept our little fishing shack at Shoreham, but otherwise we Lees was all honest cottager folk at Warminghurst under Washington, Bramber Bay, on the old Penn estate. Ah, said Puck, squatting by the windlass. I remember a piece about the Lees at Warminghurst, I do. There was never a Lee to Warminghurst that wasn't a gypsy last and first. I reckon that's the truth, Pharaoh. Pharaoh laughed. Admitting that's true, he said, my gypsy blood must be wore pretty thin, for I've made and kept a worldly fortune. By smuggling? Asked Dan. No, in the tobacco trade. You don't mean to say you gave up smuggling just to go and be a tobacconist? Dan looked so disappointed that they all had to laugh. I'm sorry, but there's all sorts of tobacconists, Pharaoh replied. How far out, now, would you call that smack with the patch on her foresail? He pointed to the fishing boats. A scant mile, said Puck after a quick look. Just about. It's 7 fathom under her, clean sand. That was where Uncle Aurette used to sink his brandy kegs from Bourgogne, and we fished 'em up and rowed 'em into the gap here for the ponies to run inland. One thickish night in January of '93, Dad and Uncle Lot and me came over from Shoreham in the smack. We found Uncle Aurette and the Lestranges, my cousins, waiting for us in their lugger with New Year's presents from mother's folk in Bourgogne. I remember Aunt Cecile, she'd send me a fine new reded cap, which I put on then and there, for the French was having their revolution in those days, and red caps was all the fashion. Uncle Aurette tells us that they had cut off their King Louis' head, and moreover, the Brest forts had fired on an English man-o'-war. The news wasn't a week old. That means war again when we was only just getting used to the peace, says Dad. Why can't King George's men and King Louis's men do on their uniforms and fight it out over our heads? Me too, I wish that, says Uncle Aurette. But they'll be pressing better men than themselves to fight for 'em. The press gangs are already on our side. You look out for yours. I'll have to bide ashore and grow cabbages for a while after I've run this cargo. But I do wish